ChatGPT said, the CBS studio lights blaze down on the most unexpected showdown in television history. Oprah Winfrey, the billionaire media mogul who had interviewed presidents and shaped American culture for decades, sat frozen in her chair, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the armrests as Denzel Washington leaned forward, his voice carrying the calm thunder of authority. Miss Winfrey, with all due respect, Denzel began, his tone measured but cutting through the studio like a blade. You've been telling America what to think for 30 years, but today I'm here to tell you your time of unchecked influence is over. The audience gasped. Camera operators exchanged shocked glances. This was supposed to be a friendly discussion about voter engagement. Nobody expected the legendary actor and cultural figure, known for his unshakable moral gravitas, to challenge the queen of daytime television. But Denzel had come prepared, with facts and truths sharp enough to rattle Oprah's empire at its foundation. Before we dive into this explosive confrontation that has the entire nation talking, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You don't want to miss a second of this political earthquake that's about to unfold. Drop a comment below telling us where you were watching from. This story is going viral across all 50 states and beyond. What happened next would trend on every social media platform for weeks. The woman who had made careers and destroyed them with a single interview was about to face her match in a man nobody ever expected to confront her more directly. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. This was a battle for the soul of American media and politics. To understand how we got to this moment, we need to understand who these two titans are and why this confrontation matters more than any political debate this year. Oprah Winfrey needs no introduction. For over 3 decades, she has been America's therapist, life coach, and moral compass rolled into one. Her net worth exceeds $3 billion. Her endorsement can make a book an instant bestseller or turn an unknown into a household name. When Oprah speaks, millions listen. She's interviewed every president since Reagan, launched careers, and built a media empire that spans television, magazines, and digital platforms. Her famous Oprah's Favorite Things episodes could make or break companies overnight. But beneath the warm smile and generous giveaways, Oprah has always been a political force. Her 2008 endorsement of Barack Obama was credited with delivering him over 1 million votes. When she speaks on social issues, stock markets shift. When she recommends a product, it sells out nationwide. She's been called the most influential woman in America, and nobody has successfully challenged that title until today. Enter Denzel Washington, the son of a Pentecostal minister and a beauty parlor owner from Mount Vernon, New York. He doesn't have Oprah's billions or her sprawling media empire, but what he has is something far rarer in today's age of influence: an unshakable reputation for truth, discipline, and moral conviction. From the silver screen to commencement stages, Denzel has built his life around telling stories that matter, embodying integrity, and calling out hypocrisy wherever he sees it. He grew up watching Oprah like millions of other Americans. He admired her, learned from her, even acknowledged her cultural impact in countless interviews. But admiration never blinded him to accountability. As Denzel's voice in American culture grew, he began noticing patterns. The way Oprah's endorsements always seemed to align neatly with her business ventures, the way her charitable foundations operated, the questions nobody dared to ask because, well, she was Oprah. The stakes of this confrontation went far beyond personal rivalry. This was about media accountability in an age of unchecked influence. It was about whether anyone, no matter how beloved, should wield limitless power over public opinion. It was about the difference between authentic advocacy and performative activism. The CBS studio had been carefully prepared for what producers thought would be a softball conversation. Oprah was promoting her latest book club selection, while Denzel was supposed to discuss voter registration efforts and civic engagement. The set was warm and inviting, with comfortable chairs and soft lighting designed to make guests feel at ease. Coffee mugs with the CBS logo sat on the table between them, steam still rising from the fresh brew. But something was different about Denzel from the moment he walked onto the set. He didn't seem nervous. He didn't seem starstruck. He seemed ready. He sat straight back, a folder of documents beside his chair that he hadn't mentioned to producers. His eyes never left Oprah's face, even during the commercial breaks. Oprah, for her part, seemed to sense something was off. The woman who had interviewed thousands of people had developed an instinct for tension. She adjusted her posture, her famous warm smile slightly tighter than usual. She had faced tough interviews before, but always as the one asking questions, not answering them. The show's host, Gayle King, Oprah's best friend and CBS This Morning anchor, tried to keep things light with opening pleasantries, but even she could feel the electricity in the air. The audience, a mix of Oprah superfans and political junkies who had come to see Washington, sat on the edge of their seats. What nobody knew was that Denzel had spent months preparing for this moment. He had hired researchers, filed Freedom of Information requests, and interviewed dozens of former Oprah employees who had signed NDAs but were willing to talk off the record. He had a story to tell, and he had chosen this moment, live television with millions watching, to tell it. The conversation started innocuously enough. Gayle opened with a softball question about voter engagement, allowing both guests to discuss the importance of civic participation. Oprah gave her polished, practiced speech about democracy and the power of voting, complete with the trademark emotional delivery that had made her a television icon. But when it was Washington's turn to speak, he didn't follow the script. "You know, Miss Winfrey," Denzel began, his voice steady and deliberate, "you talked beautifully about democracy and voting, but I have to ask, when you endorsed candidates in 2018 and 2020, did you disclose that your production company had financial ties to their campaigns?" The studio fell silent. Gayle's mouth opened slightly in shock. Oprah's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, a tell only her closest associates would recognize as danger. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Mr. Washington," Oprah replied, her voice maintaining its warmth, but with a sharp edge underneath. "My political endorsements have always come from my personal convictions." Denzel reached for the folder beside his chair. "I'm not implying anything, Miss Winfrey. I'm stating facts." He pulled out a document. According to FEC filings, Harpo Productions received $3.2 million in consulting fees from political action committees associated with candidates you endorsed. That's public record. The audience gasped. Gayle looked like she wanted to cut to commercial, but this was live television. There was no stopping what was happening. Oprah's composure, legendary in the industry, began to crack slightly. "Those were legitimate business arrangements that had nothing to do with my personal endorsements." "Really?" Denzel pressed, leaning forward, his tone sharper now. "So it's just a coincidence that every candidate who hired your company for consulting received your endorsement within weeks?" And he wasn't done. He pulled out another document. "Let's talk about your charity work. Since you've built your brand on generosity and giving back, the Oprah Winfrey Foundation, the Oprah Winfrey Operating Foundation, the Angel Network, beautiful names, inspiring missions. But did you know, audience, that less than 40% of donations actually reach the intended recipients?" "That's absolutely false," Oprah interjected, her voice rising slightly. The woman who never lost her cool was starting to show cracks. "Is it?" Denzel turned to the audience, holding up the paperwork. "Because I have the tax filings right here. Would you like me to read them? Administrative cases for executives who happen to be your personal friends, real estate holdings that have nothing to do with charity work." The tension in the studio was palpable. Security guards moved closer to the stage, unsure if they might be needed. The audience was divided. Some Oprah loyalists looked furious at Denzel's accusations, while others leaned forward, hungry for more revelations. Oprah tried to regain control. "Mr. Washington, I've been in this business for longer than you've been alive. I've helped thousands of people, created opportunities for minorities in media, and used my platform for good. What have you done besides make accusations?" It was a classic Oprah move: read direct, personalize, and put the challenger on defense. But Denzel was ready. His eyes didn't waver. His voice carried weight. "What have I done? I've served my community without making myself a billionaire in the process. I've fought for truth without turning it into a brand. And I've never, ever told poor people to just think positive while hoarding more wealth than entire communities will see in a lifetime." ChatGPT said, the audience erupted. Some applauded, others booed. Gayle King finally found her voice. Gentlemen, please, let's maintain some decorum here. But Washington wasn't finished. He leaned forward, voice firm, eyes locked on Oprah. You want to talk about your legacy, ma'am? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how you platformed Jenny Oz, who sold snake oil to desperate people. Let's talk about how you promoted Jenny McCarthy's anti-vaccine propaganda that literally cost lives. Let's talk about how you gave Dr. Phil a show and now he exploits vulnerable people for ratings. Oprah's face flushed. Those people are responsible for their own actions, she shot back. But you gave them the platform. And you gave them credibility, Denzel pressed. His tone was calm but cutting. Millions of people trusted them because you told them to. He pulled out his phone. I want to read something to your audience. This is from a mother in my district. Her autistic son was bullied relentlessly after Jenny McCarthy went on your show claiming vaccines cause autism. Her son attempted suicide at age 14. She writes, Oprah Winfrey might not have pulled the trigger, but she loaded the gun. The studio was dead silent. Even the camera operators seemed to be holding their breath. Oprah's hands were shaking now. The woman who had reduced presidents to tears, who had built an empire on emotional control, was visibly rattled. You don't understand the pressure of having a platform this large, Oprah said, her voice quieter now. Every decision affects millions of people. I've done my best. Your best? Denzel stood up, folder still in his hand. His voice carried like a gavel. Your best includes promoting The Secret and telling poor people they're poor because they don't think positively enough. Your best includes selling weight loss solutions while investing in Weight Watchers. Your best includes crying on camera about racism while living in a bubble of privilege so removed from ordinary Black Americans that you might as well be on another planet. The audience was in chaos now. Some people were standing, others were filming on their phones. The hashtag Washington vs. Oprah was already trending on Twitter. Gayle King attempted to intervene. Mr. Washington, these are very serious accusations. Do you have proof for all of these claims? Denzel turned to her. His voice dropped to a slow, deliberate cadence. Every single thing I've said is documented. Unlike Miss Winfrey's show, I don't deal in feelings and inspiration. I deal in facts and accountability. He pulled out another document. Should we discuss the NDAs? The hundreds of former employees who can't speak about their experiences working for you? The settlements paid out to keep people quiet? The culture of fear in your organizations where people are terrified to contradict you? Oprah stood up as well, her full height imposing despite her age. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just looking to make a name for yourself by attacking someone who's actually made a difference. Made a difference? Denzel gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. You've made a difference to your bank account. $3 billion worth of difference. Meanwhile, the communities you claim to represent are still struggling. The schools you built for photo ops are falling apart. The families you paraded on your show were dropped the moment the cameras stopped rolling. He turned back to the audience. His voice rose with conviction. How many of you have bought something because Oprah recommended it? How many of you have felt like failures because you couldn't manifest success like she told you to? How many of you watched her cry about her struggles while she flies between her multiple mansions and her private jet? The audience was responding now, some nodding, others looking uneasy. This wasn't what they had expected when they came to see Oprah Winfrey. You want to know the difference between us, Miss Winfrey? Denzel continued, his tone slicing through the noise. You built an empire on telling people they're special while making them feel inadequate. I'm building a career on telling people the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Oprah's voice turned icy. You think you're the first person to come after me? I've survived worse than you. I'm not trying to survive you, Denzel answered, his words sharp and unwavering. I'm trying to expose you. There's a difference at their ends. Then he pulled out one final document. His hand didn't shake, his voice didn't falter. This is the interesting one. Want to tell your audience about your relationship with Harvey Weinstein? The color drained from Oprah's face. The audience gasped collectively. Even Gayle King looked stunned. That's enough, Oprah whispered, barely audible. Is it? Denzel pressed. Because there are photos of you kissing him on the cheek at multiple events. There are records of you attending his parties. There are actresses who say you knew what he was doing and said nothing. I didn't know, Oprah said, but her voice lacked conviction. Really? The man who knows everything, who has sources everywhere, who built an empire on getting people to reveal their secrets. You didn't know. The studio felt like it might explode from the tension. Security was now actively positioned near both guests. Producers were frantically gesturing in from off camera, but nobody was paying attention to them. This was the moment Denzel Washington had been building toward. He reached into his folder one last time and pulled out a tablet. I want to show you all something, he said, turning to the audience. This is a video from 2013. A young actress, who I won't name to protect her privacy, tried to warn Miss Winfrey about Harvey Weinstein at a charity gala. He held up the tablet. The audience couldn't see clearly, but the audio was unmistakable. A young woman's voice, trembling, could be heard saying, Miss Winfrey, I need to tell you something about Harvey. Then Oprah's voice, clear and dismissive. Dear, this isn't the time or place. Harvey is a friend and a supporter of many important causes. The studio erupted. Oprah lunged forward as if to grab the tablet, but Washington stepped back. That's taken out of context, Oprah shouted, her composure completely shattered now. Is it? Denzel asked, his voice calm but cutting. Because I have 3 more videos just like it. Different women, different events, same response from you. Gayle King stood up, torn between her loyalty to her best friend and her journalistic integrity. Mr. Washington, these are serious allegations. You're suggesting that Oprah knew about Weinstein and protected him? I'm not suggesting anything, Denzel replied evenly. I'm showing you evidence. The same evidence prosecutors wanted to use but couldn't because of NDAs and settlement agreements. He turned back to Oprah, his voice low but unwavering. You've spent decades building yourself up as a champion of women, a survivor of abuse who gives voice to the voiceless. But when women needed you to speak up about one of the most prolific predators in Hollywood, you chose your business relationships over them. Oprah sank back into her chair, her face a mask of shock and anger. You don't understand the complexities. Stop, Denzel interrupted, his tone sharp as steel. Just stop with the complexities, the nuances, the complications. You knew. You all knew. And you chose money and power over protecting women. Then he turned to the audience, his voice carried like a sermon. Now this is what I'm talking about. This is why we need accountability. Miss Winfrey has operated for decades as if she's above criticism, above questioning, above the standards she applies to everyone else. She interviews politicians and demands transparency while hiding behind NDAs. She promotes speaking your truth while silencing her employees. She preaches female empowerment while protecting male predators. Someone in the audience shouted, "Tell it, Denzel!" Others were crying, whether from disappointment in Oprah or sympathy for her, it was hard to tell. But Washington pressed on, voice gaining strength, each word landing like a hammer. Let's talk about your famous book club. Did you know publishers pay up to $1 million under the table to get their book selected? That's why we see the same types of stories, the same narratives, the same comfortable lessons that don't really challenge anything. He pulled out a spreadsheet. I had my team analyze every Oprah's book club selection from the last decade. 78% were published by companies with financial ties to Harpo Productions. 65% were by authors represented by agencies that also represent you. Only 12% were by authors of color with no prior connection to your organization. Oprah tried to interject. The book club has promoted literacy and reading among middle-class women who were already reading. Exactly, Denzel cut in, his voice booming Sal. Middle-class women who were already reading. Where are the programs for inner-city kids? Where are the initiatives for prison libraries? Where's the actual impact beyond making already comfortable people feel good about themselves? He stepped closer to the audience, his words searing. You've commercialized compassion, branded benevolence, monetized morality. Every good deed comes with a camera crew. Every charity has a corporate sponsor. Every inspiring story ends with a product placement. Then he pulled out his phone again. I want to read you some messages I've received since announcing I would be on this show. This is from a former Harpo employee. Thank you for speaking up. I was fired for suggesting we pay interns. Oprah said exposure was payment enough, while she made millions from our free labor. Another message. I was a guest on her show about weight loss. They edited my story to make it look like I failed because I wasn't trying hard enough. I had a medical condition. They knew about it but ignored it. And another, my family's business was featured as one of Oprah's favorite things. We weren't prepared for the demand and went bankrupt trying to fulfill orders. When we asked for help, her team said it wasn't their problem. The audience was riveted. Some were recording on their phones, others were tweeting furiously. The control room was in chaos with producers arguing about whether to cut to commercial. Oprah finally found her voice again. You're cherry-picking negative stories. What about the thousands of people I've helped, the schools I've built, the careers I've launched? Let's talk about those schools, Washington said immediately, his voice cutting through the noise. The Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa. Beautiful campus, beautiful photo opportunities. But did you tell your audience about the abuse scandal, the dead baby found on the premises, the fact that many graduates can't find jobs because the curriculum was designed for American colleges, not South African reality? Oprah's face went pale. Those were isolated incidents that were dealt with. Isolated? Denzel pulled out another document. I have reports of 13 separate incidents over 5 years. Each one hushed up, each one handled privately, each one kept from your adoring public. He turned to the audience. This is the pattern. Create something that looks good on camera, milk it for publicity and profit, then abandon it when problems arise. The Oprah store, closed. The Oxygen Network, sold. The numerous foundations and initiatives, quietly discontinued once the cameras moved on. Oh, you're twisting everything, Oprah said, but her voice was weak now. Denzel's voice dropped lower, steady, unrelenting. Or am I just pulling back the curtain? You know, like in that movie you loved to quote, The Wizard of Oz, except you're not a kindly man pretending to be a wizard. You're a billionaire pretending to be a saint. Washington moved to the center of the stage, commanding the space now. You've had presidents on this stage, celebrities, world leaders, but I bet you've never had someone tell you the truth. So here it is. You're not a queen. You're not a spiritual leader. You're not America's therapist. You're a brilliantly marketed product who's convinced millions of people that buying what you're selling will make them better people. The silence that followed was deafening. Then slowly applause started from one corner of the audience. Then another. Soon about half the audience was clapping while the other half sat in stunned silence. Gayle King looked like she was about to cry. I think we need to take a commercial break. No, Washington said firmly. We're not taking a break. We're not giving Miss Winfrey time to regroup with her crisis management team. This is live television. This is accountability in real time. He pulled out one final piece of paper. This is a letter from your father, Vernon Winfrey, that he sent to my office. He's tired of pretending to. Shall I read what he says about the daughter who barely visits, who uses him for heartwarming stories but won't help with his medical bills? Don't you dare, Oprah said, standing up again, her voice shaking with rage. Why not? You've built a career on exposing other people's family secrets. You've made people cry about their fathers on national television. Why should yours be off limits? The two of them stood facing each other, the tension crackling like electricity. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It was a reckoning. You think you're brave, Denzel? Oprah said, her voice low and dangerous. You think you're some kind of hero? You're just another politician trying to make a name for yourself by tearing down someone who's actually accomplishing something. What I am, Washington responded, matching her tone, his eyes unblinking, is someone who's not afraid of you. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? Because your whole empire is built on everyone being too scared or too grateful to challenge you. He looked directly into the camera. His words struck like a sermon. America, this is your wake-up call. The people you idolize, the billionaires you think are on your side, they're not. They're on their own side. They'll sell you inspiration and empowerment while keeping you in your place. They'll make you feel special for buying their products while they laugh all the way to the bank. Oprah's voice was barely a whisper now. You have no idea what you've just done. Oh, I know exactly what I've done, Denzel replied, gathering his documents. I've shown America that the Empress has no clothes, that the great and powerful Oprah is just another billionaire protecting her interest. He turned, his presence filling the stage. You asked what I've accomplished? I've shown people that no one is above accountability, not even Oprah Winfrey. What happened next would go down in television history. Oprah Winfrey, the woman who had never lost her composure in 40 years of broadcasting, stood up and walked off her own show. She didn't say goodbye, didn't thank the audience, didn't even look at Gayle King. She just left, her heels clicking on the studio floor, the sound echoing in the stunned silence. Gayle King stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, caught between her role as a journalist and her loyalty to her best friend. The audience didn't know whether to leave or stay. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every awkward second. Denzel Washington remained on stage, calm and composed. He turned to Gayle King. I'm sorry you were put in this position, Miss King. But journalism is about truth, not friendship. Gayle found her voice, professional training kicking in. Mr. Washington, what you've just done, these allegations, they're going to have massive repercussions. Good, Denzel replied simply. His voice was steady, final. It's time we stopped treating billionaires like deities. It's time we held media moguls accountable for their influence. It's time we asked hard questions about how wealth and power really work in America. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. Washington versus Oprah wasn't just trending, it was breaking the internet. Twitter crashed twice from the volume of posts. Instagram was flooded with memes. TikTok creators were already making reaction videos. The immediate response was as divided as the studio audience had been. Oprah's defenders came out in force. Tyler Perry posted a lengthy Instagram defense of his friend, calling Washington's accusations a witch hunt against a black woman who dared to succeed. Celebrities who owed their careers to Oprah lined up to support her. But something interesting was happening in the comments sections. Regular people, the ones who had bought the books, watched the shows, tried to manifest their dreams, were sharing their own stories. A flood of disillusionment poured out across social media. I spent thousands on self-help products Oprah promoted, still depressed, still broke, and now I also feel like a failure. One woman wrote, my mom refused real medical treatment for her cancer because Oprah's show promoted alternative medicine. She died believing she just didn't think positively enough. Another shared, I worked for Harpo for 2 years. Everything Washington said is true. We were terrified to speak up. The account was quickly verified by journalists. Major news outlets scrambled to cover the story. CNN's Anderson Cooper led with it, calling it the most shocking confrontation in television history. Fox News ran segments supporting Washington, with Tucker Carlson saying that finally someone had the guts to say what we've all been thinking about these liberal elite billionaires. But the real bombshell came 3 hours after the show. The actress from the 2013 video Washington had played came forward. It was Rose McGowan, and she confirmed everything. Oprah knew, she said in a hastily arranged press conference. They all knew, and they chose their wealth over our safety. Within 6 hours, 3 more women came forward with similar stories about trying to warn Oprah about Weinstein. Former Harpo employees began breaking their NDAs, calculating that the public pressure would protect them from lawsuits. A former accountant leaked documents showing exactly how the Oprah empire's finances worked. The shell companies, the tax havens, the gulf between what was publicly reported for her charities and what actually happened to the money. The Oprah Winfrey Network's stock price plummeted. Weight Watchers, in which Oprah had a significant stake, lost 20% of its value in after-hours trading. Publishers who had paid for book club placements were demanding meetings with their legal teams. But Denzel Washington wasn't done. That evening, he appeared on Rachel Maddow's show to elaborate on his accusations. He came with more receipts, more documents, more evidence. He revealed that he had been investigating Oprah's empire for over a year, that this had been a coordinated effort to expose the dark side of billionaire influence in media. This isn't just about Oprah, Washington explained to Maddow. She's a symptom of a larger disease. We have a handful of billionaires who control what we see, what we read, what we think. They dress it up as inspiration and empowerment, but it's just marketing. They're selling us back our own dreams at a markup. He revealed that his office would be holding congressional hearings on media consolidation and the tax-exempt status of celebrity foundations. If you're using charity as a tax shelter while building a billion-dollar empire, we're going to have questions. The next morning, Oprah's team released a statement. It was clearly written by lawyers, denying all allegations and threatening legal action against Washington for defamation. But the damage was done. The image was cracked, possibly beyond repair. Major publications began investigating Denzel Washington's claims. The New York Times assigned a team of investigative journalists to dig into Oprah's charities. The Washington Post started examining the financial relationships between Harpo Productions and political campaigns. The Wall Street Journal analyzed the business practices of the Oprah empire. Within a week, the first domino fell. The IRS announced it was reviewing the tax-exempt status of several Oprah-affiliated foundations. The South African government launched an investigation into the Leadership Academy. Former employees filed a class-action lawsuit about unpaid wages and hostile work environments. Celebrities began distancing themselves. The ones who owed their careers to Oprah stayed silent, but their silence was deafening. Others, emboldened by Washington's courage, began sharing their own stories of exploitation and manipulation in the entertainment industry. Dr. Phil's show lost 3 major sponsors. Dr. Oz faced renewed scrutiny for his medical claims. The entire Oprah extended universe was under threat, but the most significant impact was on regular people. The millions who had watched Oprah religiously, who had bought into the dream she was selling, began to question everything. Support groups formed online for people who felt deceived. The term Oprah Industrial Complex began trending, describing the vast network of influence and control she had built. Meanwhile, Denzel Washington was becoming a phenomenon himself. His congressional office was flooded with calls of support. He gained 1 million Twitter followers in 3 days. Publishers were offering him book deals. Cable news shows were begging for interviews. But he remained focused on his mission. In a follow-up interview with CBS, notably not with Gayle King, he said, "This isn't about taking down one person. It's about changing a system that allows billionaires to masquerade as moral authorities while exploiting the very people they claim to help." He announced legislation that would require full financial disclosure for any media personality endorsing political candidates. Another bill would regulate how charities could use donated funds. A third would investigate the use of NDAs to silence employees and victims. The backlash against Washington was swift and vicious. He received death threats from Oprah superfans. Right-wing media, after initially supporting him, turned against him when they realized his critiques extended to all billionaires, not just liberal ones. He was called everything from a clout chaser to a communist, but he didn't back down. In speech after speech, interview after interview, he kept hammering home his message. We need to stop worshiping wealth. We need to stop believing that billionaires have our best interests at heart. We need to demand accountability from everyone, no matter how much we might admire them. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Oprah attempted a comeback. She arranged a primetime special on her own network, a 2-hour event where she would address the allegations. The promotion promised Oprah's truth with carefully selected audience members and pre-screened questions. But Washington was ready for this too. An hour before Oprah's special, he released a treasure trove of documents online. Emails, financial records, testimony from former employees. He called it the Oprah Papers, and it was devastating. It showed a pattern of behavior spanning decades: exploitation, cover-ups, and the careful cultivation of an image that bore little resemblance to reality. The special was a disaster. Oprah cried on cue, but it felt performed. She offered vague denials, but no concrete rebuttals. She tried to turn herself into the victim, but the audience wasn't buying it. The comments on the live stream were brutal. Even some of her most devoted fans were expressing disappointment. The final nail came when Vernon Winfrey, Oprah's father, gave an interview to a local Nashville station. He confirmed that his daughter had indeed abandoned him, using him for stories while refusing to help with his mounting medical bills. "She's not the person you see on TV," he said sadly. "That person doesn't exist." A month after the confrontation, the landscape had completely changed. Oprah had retreated from public view, canceling all appearances and shutting down her social media. Her various businesses were in crisis mode, with layoffs announced at Oyun and Harpo Productions. The book club was on hiatus. Weight Watchers was looking for a new spokesperson. Denzel Washington, on the other hand, had become a household name. He was featured on the cover of Time magazine with the headline, "The Man Who Toppled an Empire." She was flooded with speaking requests and constantly in demand for interviews. But Denzel Washington used his platform consistently to redirect attention to the issues, not himself. "This was never about me versus Oprah," he said in a congressional hearing on media accountability. "This is about all of us versus a system that concentrates power and wealth in the hands of a few while selling the rest of us false hope." He introduced comprehensive legislation targeting billionaire-owned media companies, requiring full disclosure of financial relationships and limiting the ability to use charitable foundations as tax shelters. The bills had bipartisan support, with even some Republicans recognizing the populist appeal of taking on billionaire elites. Cultural impact. The confrontation sparked a national conversation about parasocial relationships, the one-way emotional connections people form with celebrities. Mental health professionals reported a surge in people seeking help to process their disillusionment with Oprah and what she represented. Universities began offering courses analyzing the Oprah effect and how media personalities shape public consciousness. High school debate teams argued about celebrity influence versus accountability. The phrase "pulling a Washington" entered the lexicon, meaning to fearlessly challenge someone powerful. Deeper revelations. 3 months after the confrontation, investigative journalists uncovered even more damaging information. The Weinstein connection went deeper than anyone imagined. Financial records showed Oprah's companies had received significant investments from Weinstein's production company, creating a clear conflict of interest. Former actresses came forward saying Oprah had actively discouraged them from speaking out. The South African investigation into the Leadership Academy revealed horrifying negligence. Millions meant for the school had been diverted elsewhere. Graduates testified they were used as props for American media while receiving substandard education. The IRS investigation was slow but steady. Preliminary findings suggested hundreds of millions had been improperly shielded from taxes through dubious charitable arrangements. Legal experts predicted significant fines, if not criminal charges. Shifting attitudes. Perhaps the most significant change was in how Americans viewed their media icons. The age of unquestioning celebrity worship was ending. People demanded more transparency, harder questions, and refused to accept carefully crafted images at face value. Washington had accomplished something remarkable. He had taken on one of the most powerful people in media and won, not through personal attacks or sensationalism, but through facts, preparation, and courage. He had shown that accountability was possible even for billionaires who seemed untouchable. In a profile for The Atlantic, Washington reflected, "I grew up watching Oprah like millions of others. She was part of my American dream. But at some point, I realized the dream she was selling was designed to keep us asleep. Someone had to sound the alarm." When asked if he regretted destroying such an iconic figure, Washington replied, "I didn't destroy Oprah Winfrey. I just showed people who she really was. The destruction was self-inflicted, built into the foundation of an empire based on deception. All I did was point out that the emperor had no clothes." The failed comeback. 6 months after the confrontation, Oprah attempted another comeback. She hired the best crisis management firm in the country and launched a carefully orchestrated apology tour. She admitted to mistakes and oversights, but stopped short of accepting real responsibility. She announced new charitable initiatives and promised transparency, but it was too late. The magic was gone. The spell was broken. Her ratings plummeted. Books she endorsed no longer automatically became bestsellers. Her political endorsements became toxic. Washington ascends. Meanwhile, Denzel Washington's influence continued to grow. He became the leading voice for media accountability and wealth inequality. His legislation was advancing through Congress. He was even mentioned as a potential presidential candidate, though he insisted he was focused on his current role. The confrontation inspired others to speak truth to power. Journalists became more aggressive in questioning billionaires. Employees broke NDAs to expose wrongdoing. The culture of silence that had protected the powerful was cracking 1 year later. A year after that fateful day in the CBS studio, America looked different. The worship of billionaire celebrities had diminished. People were more skeptical of feel-good messaging that ignored systemic problems. Denzel Washington had not only toppled an empire, he had shifted the culture itself. There was a growing demand for authentic leadership rather than rehearsed inspiration. Oprah Winfrey's empire hadn't completely collapsed, but it was a shadow of its former self. She still had her wealth, but she had lost her influence. She was still famous, but no longer trusted. She had become a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the necessity of accountability. In his final interview on the subject, Denzel Washington was asked what lesson he hoped people would take from all of this. "Question everything," he said simply. "Don't accept things just because someone famous or wealthy says them. Demand evidence, demand accountability, and never, ever be afraid to speak truth to power, no matter how powerful they might seem." He paused, then added, "And remember, nobody is above criticism. Nobody is too big to fail. Nobody is too beloved to be held accountable. That's not cynicism. That's democracy." The interview ended with Denzel looking directly into the camera. "To everyone watching who's ever felt powerless against the billionaire class, who's ever been told to just think positive while struggling to pay rent, who's ever bought into a dream that turned out to be a marketing scheme, this victory is yours. We did this together, and we're just getting started." The confrontation between Denzel Washington and Oprah Winfrey would be studied for years to come. It was more than just a viral television moment. It was a turning point in American culture, a moment when the facade of benevolent billionaire influence finally cracked beyond repair. Business schools would analyze it as a case study in crisis management failure. Journalism programs would use it as an example of the importance of adversarial interviews. Political science courses would examine it as a triumph of grassroots accountability over institutional power. But perhaps most importantly, ordinary Americans would remember it as the day someone finally said what they had been thinking, but were too afraid to voice. The day someone stood up to an icon and revealed the human, flawed, and sometimes corrupt reality behind the carefully crafted image. Denzel Washington had done more than expose Oprah Winfrey. He had exposed an entire system of celebrity worship, billionaire propaganda, and the commodification of inspiration. He had shown that with enough preparation, courage, and facts, even the most powerful figures could be held accountable. The ripples from that confrontation continued to spread. Other billionaires faced increased scrutiny, celebrity charities were investigated, media companies were forced to be more transparent about their financial relationships. The age of unquestioned celebrity authority was ending, and it all started with one man who refused to be intimidated, who came prepared with receipts, and who understood that sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply telling the truth. As for Oprah Winfrey, she would never fully recover from that day. She would remain wealthy, but her wealth would no longer translate to influence. She would remain famous, but her fame would forever be tainted by the revelations of that Tuesday afternoon. She had built an empire on making others vulnerable while protecting herself. And in the end, that empire had crumbled the moment someone made her truly vulnerable for the first time. The lesson was clear. In the age of information, no amount of money or power could protect you from the truth. And sometimes all it takes is one person with courage and conviction to bring down an empire built on deception. If you made it this far, you've just witnessed one of the most explosive political confrontations ever broadcast on live television. This moment will be studied and discussed for years to come. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell, because we'll be covering every development in this ongoing story: the investigations, the lawsuits, the political fallout. We'll bring you all of it as it happens. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Was Denzel right to expose Oprah this way? Should billionaires face more accountability? What other powerful figures need to be questioned? Your voice matters in this conversation. And remember, this isn't just about one confrontation between two powerful figures. This is about all of us demanding truth, transparency, and accountability from those who shape our culture and our country. Share this video with everyone you know. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep demanding better. The revolution won't be televised? Well, it just was, and you were here to witness it. Subscribe now for more explosive political content, more fearless journalism, and more truth-telling the mainstream media won't show you. This is just the beginning.